Something moving. God is moving. And He's moving. And He's transforming. Something changed. The Spirit of the Lord is in this place. Come on and bless His holy name. Oh. Come on and bless Him. Come on and bless Him. Something changed. Something moving. Something moving. The Spirit of the Lord is moving. He's touching your heart. He's touching your mind. Something moving. Something. Yes, Lord. The Spirit is here. Receive the power of the Lord. Something moving. The Spirit of the Lord. The Spirit. Can you feel the Spirit? It's moving. It's breaking chains. It's breaking chains. Something moving. Something changing. Something moving. Something changing. Hallelujah. The sound of heaven is rushing in. The cloud is coming. Something changing. The sound of heaven is rushing in. The cloud is coming. Something changing. The fire of the Lord is here right now. The fire of the Lord is here. The fire of the Lord. It cleanses. It purifies. The fire, consuming fire of the Lord is here. Oh, yeah. Come on and just lift your hands right now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here.
Very special good afternoon to you, Trinidad and Tobago. To all of you locked on the World Wide Web, I want to welcome you to the program Family Focus. And we are getting ready to head straight into our program Healthy Relationships with Counselor Petreece Cuffie. So we want to head straight into that program Healthy Relationships.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships. Every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
So at this time, I want to say good afternoon to Counselor Petreece Cuffie. Good afternoon to you, Petreece. So good to have you with me once again. All right, Petreece, are you there with me? Are you hearing me? All right, hold on 1 second for me. All right, there you go. Good morning. Good afternoon, as a matter of fact.
Good afternoon, Tiffany, and to all our listeners here in loud and clear.
Yes.
All right, great. So really, really happy to be here. Really happy that Revival 2022 was a success. Thank God for that. And let us please continue to remember our nation in prayer. We're glad that things are improving with respect to the COVID-19 situation. And we continue to pray for our country and the world. We see what is happening, but we thank God that our hope is not in man. Our hope is in God. Our hope is in God. So I am continuing today. I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish, and this is still part one, but this is part one continued. All right, where we're looking at loving ourselves and how did we get here. So when man sinned, there was a breakdown in relationship between man and God, man and others, and of course, man and himself. We even see with man and nature, right? We became disconnected when man sinned, right? And disconnection brought pain and abuse into all of our relationships. We actually need healthy connections with God, with others, and ourselves to be healthy. Anybody who tells you that they don't need community to be okay and to be healthy, they are fooling themselves. That was never God's plan. And that is not how God created us. So it is important, if we have to be healthy spiritually, emotionally, physically, we have to understand we need community. We need God, we need others, and we have to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. Now, God is love. And because He created you to love you, He wants you to learn to love you too, right? He wants you to learn to love Him, to learn to love others, and to learn to love yourself. And we see that in the greatest commandment in Matthew 22:37 to 40, and Jesus is speaking. Somebody asked him what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. So loving God is not an option, right? A second is equally important. Equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. So here we say we need to love others, we need to love ourselves. The entire law, verse 40, the entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments, right? So when Adam and Eve sinned, right, it messed up everything. And that is why Jesus had to come. Jesus had to come to bring us back in relationship with God, right? Jesus had to come to empower us to love. And remember, I'm saying God empowers us to love. On our own, we can only do so much, right? God has came to empower us to love others, to love ourselves, right? Even to love Him. And we understand that one day there will be a new heaven and a new earth where we get to spend eternity with the one that we love. That's God, right? And the one who loves us. And the more we learn to love authentically, the more like Jesus we become, right? So we want to love ourselves, but the cycle doesn't actually start there. It starts with us accepting God's love, which was demonstrated by what Jesus did for us, and choosing to accept to love God, which is demonstrated by our obedience to Him. So I tell people God's love language is obedience. He says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. If you love me, you will do what I say, right? Now, when I say that we need to love ourselves, I am not referring to a prideful, type of loving yourself where you feel that I am better than everybody else, right, than others. I am talking about being thankful and appreciating the person that God has made you. A type of loving yourself that is based upon humility and thankfulness. And we actually see this. David really expressed this so wonderfully in Psalm 139:4. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation. And it says, right, Psalms 139, verse 14, sorry. And it says, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous, and how well I know it. David wasn't boasting in who he was, but rather he was being thankful and rejoicing over the beautiful creation that God made in him. And God wants you to be able to do that. God wants you to be able to look at yourself and thank Him for making you so wonderfully complex, right? But how did we become so disconnected from ourselves, right? although we are wonderfully made, you know, how do we feel so stupid, so ugly, so fearful, so, you know, like I'm not good enough, like I reject. Like sometimes we say, I feel like God's stepchild or God outside child. You know, how did that happen? We understand, yes, sin would have brought disconnection and brokenness, but we also understand our interactions with others because of this brokenness. Because we're broken, it brings that deeper, you know, disconnection. So as I would have shared the last time I was here, that the main functions of family are one, to meet our needs and to point us to God as the ultimate fulfillment of these needs, so as the source of our needs. So parents, significant others, you know, they meet our needs for love, for comfort, for food, for shelter, for support. But then what they need to do is actually point us to God as the fulfillment. He's the only one who is source. Yeah? And secondly, to help us understand who we are. So one of the things that family does is help us understand who we are. That is our identity. So that how our needs are met gives us messages about ourselves. How people interact with us, significant people interact with us, gives us messages about our identity, about our worth, about our value. Are we competent? Are we significant? Are we valuable? Right? Those are the messages we got. And in the last program I did, I looked at some of the causes of unhealthy relationship with self. You know, so this is looking at how people may interact with us, and these things will give us very unhealthy messages about our identity, about our worth, about our significance, about our competence. So some of these causes of an unhealthy relationship with self are abuse, and we looked at this, verbal, physical, sexual, neglect, you know, uninvolved parents, emotional abuse, and I went into a little depth on the different types of emotional abuse, even abandonment, favoritism, comparisons, giving children activities that are above their abilities at the time, a lack of praise and no compliments, unnecessary criticism or harsh criticism, being left out, being picked on and bullied, academic challenges, even illness, right? All of these things can impact how we see ourselves, our identity, how we see our worth, our self-esteem. And I would have touched on all of these in the last program. So if you missed it, you can go on YouTube, FBN TV, to look at that program again, right? So I also looked at why is an unhealthy relationship with oneself or low self-esteem a bad thing, and I identified 6 reasons. 1, because you are believing a lie, and if you're believing a lie about yourself, you're living a lie, right? If you don't realize how valuable you are living a lie. Yes. Secondly, it hinders you from experiencing the love of God the way that He wants you to. Thirdly, it hinders you from experiencing the love that people want to give you. I have met with people, I've even interacted with people where I wanted to love them. I wanted to be there for them. But the way that they behaved made it just so difficult, right? Even when you did love them, they can't even see the love. Yeah. 4, it hinders you from fulfilling your potential and making the contribution that God wants you to make in this life. It hinders you from that. 5, it hinders your ability to really enjoy the blessings in your life. And 6, while many times persons with low self-esteem will go out of their way, you know, for others, a lot of times doing it to their own hurt, where they become burnt out, feel unappreciated for their sacrifices. What happens a lot of times is that they endure intimate relationships rather than enjoy them. So that they're doing wonderful, loving things for others, right? But feeling burnt out and feeling unappreciated because they're not doing it from a place of I am I am good enough, I am valuable. They do it from a place of wanting to feel like that, right? Remember, God doesn't just want you to love others, He also wants you to love yourself, right? So, what I want to look at today, and I may not be able to complete it in the time, so tune in again next Monday, God's willing. What I want to look at is signs of an unhealthy relationship with self. So, signs of an unhealthy relationship with self. And I'm looking at work done by Dr. Sorensen, a Canadian psychiatrist. And she gave a number of them. Being needy. A basic need of all people is that of believing that they are lovable and knowing that they are loved, right? So a basic need, knowing that they are lovable and believing that they are lovable, and knowing that they are loved, right? When people have low self-esteem, however, they are anxiously unsure of themselves and likely even question if they are lovable. One of the main ways people try to find an answer to this question is to look to others. You know, they're hyper vigilant, you know, watching others' behaviors, listening to their words, their tone of voice, mentally recording the ways people act towards them, even keeping score, you know, of what they think work and what they think doesn't work. Of course, all too often, what they conclude is not accurate. Desperately seeking reassurance that they are lovable, someone with a low self-esteem looks outside of himself or herself and at the behavior of those closest to them to find answers to the questions of being lovable. Then, if that person who professes to love them, or professes to love you, does not act in ways that you think indicate this love, you do a number of things. 1, try harder to please in order to win the love and attention of the significant other. 2, become angry when you feel the significant other is withholding or giving you what you need. Or 3, feel that you must be deserving of this treatment in some way, right? And conclude that, okay, well, probably I am really unlovable. However, that is a very difficult thing for a person to truly believe, right? So finding this explanation unbearable to fully conclude, right? You continue to vacillate between depression and anger towards the person from whom you want the affirmation. So all of us know, because we create in the image and likeness of God, that deep down, no, I can't be completely unlovable. That can't be true. I can't be worthless. That can't be true. So that while you look into a person to get the affirmation, you don't feel like you're getting it, and you conclude, okay, well, this means I'm unlovable. This means I'm worthless. That is too hard for a person to just take in. So that what starts to happen, you start to get angry and depressed, right? And you can lash out towards that person that you want to get this affirmation from. Unfortunately, much of the disappointment you have towards significant others is the result of your own insecurity, your neediness that demands constant reinforcement, right? Sometimes it's unreasonable expectations and an inability to look at your own issues. You see, at the end of the day, another human being is not your source. And because we all have issues, right? You may be trying to get something from a person that they cannot give you. And if you're not able to come to terms with that, you will forever be angry and depressed. If you are not able to turn to God as your source, and to understand your worth, which we will be doing later on. Understand that God has, by what he has done for you, made you worthy of love. You will always be in that space of trying to please, and being disappointed and feeling angry and depressed. Yeah. On the other hand, all too often, those with unhealthy self-esteem choose partners, spouses who are similar to the people who created their, when I say created, because it's not like if a lot of times parents are doing these things on purpose. Parents themselves have their own issues that some of them don't realize, and some are not willing to deal with it. Yeah. So sometimes they end up choosing partners who have their own self-esteem problems, right? And as a result of that, such partners or spouses are unwilling or unable to give themselves in ways that are warm and nurturing and loving, as they also feel depleted, right? Or they feel like if such nurturing is unnecessary, or they feel like if they want it from you because they don't even have it, so they're making you their source. You don't have it, they don't have it. And we could see how that could become very, very difficult and very painful. Over time, as people, of course, go through the recovery process, they work on themselves, they get into a healthy relationship with God and healthy community, they come to believe, right, in God's assessment and make it their assessment, right? Rather than needing to seek the appraisal of others. And you all will know I'm adding my own thing into what this doctor would have shared. Yes? And next sign of an unhealthy relationship with self is chaotic relationships. Chaotic relationships. It stands to reason that those with low self-esteem might have chaotic relationships, right? Self-focus, right? Hypersensitive, feeling unlovable, defensive, right? And with the other consequences of low self-esteem, it would obviously be difficult to build and maintain a close, honest, mature relationship. Instead, there is usually a predominance of hurt feelings, misunderstanding, defensiveness, and blaming. There are unreasonable expectations, poor communication, holding in feelings, and all in all, chaos. So once you see relationships, they seem always very chaotic, something is always wrong. That is a possible indication of an unhealthy self-esteem, an unhealthy relationship with self, right? There's also defensiveness. With a low self-esteem, we can become defensive when somebody merely asking your opinion or asking you for an idea, right? Or sometimes even asking for your input on a decision, right? Expecting that they might be criticized or their suggestion might be received with disapproval. They do not like to expose themselves in this way. When criticized, and sometimes this is, we're talking constructive criticism, so you're being criticized even by somebody who loves you, who wants to make your life better, they will often deny the obvious, right? Deny the obvious. They're unable to admit mistakes, that they made a mistake, that they sinned, that this was poor judgment, right? Or that they caused an offense. They become very defensive. And of course, that's because deep down, they already feel not good enough. So to point out that something is wrong, that there's a mistake or an error or there's sin, would make them feel even worse. So you know what? I'm shielding off that. With defensiveness. There could also be eating disorders, and virtually all experts agree that low self-esteem is typical of people with eating disorders. So a lot of times, a lot of eating disorders where people are starving themselves or binge eating, you know, even comfort eating. A lot of times the root of that is self-esteem issue. And as I work with clients who are dealing with, you know, some eating disorders, self-compassion is something that I have to teach, you know, just compassion for yourself, which a lot of people with a low self-esteem, they're very hard on themselves and are always beating up on themselves. There's hypervigilance, another indication of a low self-esteem or unhealthy self-esteem is hypervigilance, constantly anxious and fearful of making a mistake. Those with low self-esteem are overly watchful of the behaviors of others, ever vigilant of what others do and say. They search for clues on how to act, what to wear, what to say, what to do. They also scrutinize the reactions of others, frequently misinterpreting what they see or hear, of course, because there are many reasons why people act the way or react the way that they do. And to think that you would know why for sure without asking a question is actually not healthy, right? So unless you ask for clarification, you really don't know sometimes why somebody is acting or reacting in the way that they are, right? And of course, to get clarification or to ask for reasons, not always possible, right? So often their conclusion is inaccurate. So of course the conclusion is something is wrong with me, I am not good enough, this person don't like me because so, right? Uncertain if their observations are correct, they tend to vacillate between blaming themselves or blaming the other person when situations don't go as anticipated. And I will close with this one and continue this in our next program. A lack of assertiveness or passive, right? So instead of being assertive, they are passive, or they are aggressive, or they are passive aggressive, right? So persons with a low self-esteem are either passive, aggressive, or passive aggressive. That's the kinds of behaviors that they show, right? Because assertiveness requires boldness. Assertiveness requires that I believe that I am valuable and important, and you are valuable and important. I believe that my opinion is important, whether you agree with it or not, but so is your opinion. I believe that I am not more valuable than you, and you are not more valuable than me, right? So most persons with low self-esteem, you know, they don't have that. They're not assertive. They don't have that kind of boldness. They are often too fearful of upsetting others because, of course, the fear of being rejected. If I upset you, I'll be rejected. To tell the truth, to ask for what they want, or to even share their feelings. Instead, they tend to become passive until that anger builds up, at which point they could become aggressive and defensive, sarcastic, or rude, even violent, as in cases of domestic violence, right? People with a low self-esteem may also behave passive-aggressively. So instead of telling you how they really feel about things and wanting to address it, right, they can act out in ways that are very passive-aggressive. So you don't even know that they are sabotaging you and that they are harming you, but they are doing it because I can't get back to you by just talking about it and with my words, so I'll do something to you that hurts you that you may not even realize I am the one doing it, right? So that when we don't have a healthy self-esteem, it's very difficult for us to confront and to share and to talk, to even ask for what we need. So sometimes a person doesn't even know that you need or want something, but you're thinking that they should know. And when they don't, you act out in these ways, whether aggressively or passive aggressively, right? So today, just looking at some of the some of the signs of an unhealthy relationship with self or low self-esteem, the ones that I touched on today, being needy, right? Being needy, chaotic relationships, defensiveness, eating disorders, hypervigilance, and a lack of assertiveness where a person will show passive aggressive or aggressive behavior. So Tiffany, I'll stop there today and I would need to continue with this. So this will be part one, continued, right? And try to get through with how did we get here? And then what are the signs of an unhealthy self-esteem? Yes? So thank you all so much for tuning in and for listening.
Thank you so very much, Petreece, and I must apologize to yourself and the listeners. We were just sorting out some technical issues before we got started today, so I know we will continue next week. I just want to let you know that I'm seeing Adrian. He's on the Facebook Live, and he said, thank you so very much for this information. It's really helpful. All right, so just to give you that little
Adrian.
feedback.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Indeed. All right. So, guys, let me just give you a little more information about Petreece. I know some of you may want the number. So that number to WhatsApp her would be 329-7383. That's 329-7383. You can check out her website at coffeeconsulting.com. And also, you can check out on Facebook at Petreece Cuffie and Associates, Equipping People for Life. You can also follow her on Instagram at Petreece Cuffie 1470. And her services include counseling online and in person for individual adults and adolescents, married and premarital couples, as well as families. There's also online support groups for divorced and separated persons, and online mentoring and coaching groups for married couples with Huey and Petreece Cuffie. There's also training. You've got the workshops and webinars, and these include marriage enrichment, premarital workshops, parenting, building healthy relationships, lay counselor training, and self-esteem improvement. Available webinars on the website at coffeeconsulting.com. You've got understanding men and their emotions and how to encourage them to share, and also understanding marital trust and how to rebuild it when it's broken. The books available at amazon.com. You've got What My Parents Taught Me About Sex, Marriage, and Choosing a Husband by Huey and Petreece Cuffie, and A Mind for Christ by Huey Cuffie. So much if you go on to the website, coffeeconsulting.com, you've got all that information right there for you. And also, you can head back on over to our FBN TV on YouTube, and also Isaac the Promise on Facebook. If you would have missed any previous programs, you can get them right there as well. So I want to say thank you so very much, Petreece. Once again, we do apologize for the late start, but we will continue next week, God's willing. All right?
Sure, thanks.
So God
Okay,
bless you.
bye-bye, everyone.
All righty, take care. God bless.
Okay, God bless you too.
Pass through the trees, so grateful to see it. A beautiful life, a beautiful way.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.